how many people are standing here and not one person took my brochure? Look at all these people. Not one of them took this. Valuable coupons.
What are they doing now? Who's Kevin
Mitnick. He's the computer wizard.
Yeah.
The way that the Japanese wizard found him was very interesting. Mitnick respected the Japanese wizard for tracking him. On the other hand, since the whole computer business is stupid and ridiculous to begin with, why should Mitnick suffer for a ridiculous assault on culture, namely the computer? So that's it.
What do you think of computers?
I hate them.
That's why.
Because they're not like feeling skin and they're not like walking in the forest. And one can get lost deeply in them. My son, of course, is in that world.
These
but
people
I'm not
are computer
I know, it's all right. But see,
he's a computer foe.
Hackers are all right because they're anarchists. That's fine. But the rest of it, it's all
bullshit.
pornography.
This is such bullshit.
I like Chaos Computer Club. I like Anarchy.
You know Chaos?
No, but I like the whole idea.
Heard of it.
I like the whole idea.
Because
No, it's great. But no, Mitnick's, it's ridiculous.
You just do it for the challenge of getting in, because it's like the big game, because the people who own the system, they hire so-called professionals to set up security, so to keep people like us out. So it's a game. You want to see how smart they are. And, if you can beat them at their own game, you get in, you look around. If it's boring, you leave. Generally, most people leave. You have some malicious types who like to go in and screw things up. But, I just do it for the challenge. It's fun.
These kids in the Catskills, they were like 14 and 15 years old. They were into trading software, and they had a computer bulletin board system, and they would put up codes for phreaking to make free phone calls, and people would put up numbers of databases, and somebody put up an AT&T database number. And so one kid who was good with hacking into systems got on, and he got into a menu that he didn't know what it was, and he just started poking around with it, and the next thing he knew, people came to his house, and he didn't know what happened, and they told him that he had moved a satellite. He moved a telecommunications satellite out of orbit, and they all freaked out. I mean, they came to his house going, "You moved a satellite," and, he was like 14 years old, so his parents were like passing out because there were federal agents in his house, and he was shitting bricks, and the federal agents came in, confiscated all his computer equipment, and scared the living daylights out of him, and he thought he was going away to jail for the rest of his life, and he just turned everybody in.
So by definition, in a bureaucracy, any individual who thinks for herself is considered a hooligan or a smartass or a know-it-all or a troublemaker. The creative child is the troublemaker. So by definition, an innovative person, particularly in technology with computers, anyone who gets in there, uses the computer for his or her own purpose, is by definition a hooligan, a punk.
Cyberpunk is made up of kids, freaks, or obsessive technophiles. And like any other movement, it has its stars.
Kevin Mitnick, the world's most dangerous computer hacker.
USA Today put his picture on the front page, morphed or superimposed with the image of Darth Vader. And I thought, this is a remarkable combination of two things, and it's really picking up on the idea of the dark side hacker.
If ever there was someone who fit that description, it was Kevin. The mere mention of his name was enough to incur the wrath of the authorities. Over the years, his reputation grew, and so did the falsehoods. In numerous articles, Kevin was said to have broken into NORAD, harassed actress Christy McNichol, and turned his friends' home phones into payphones.
My regret about Cyberpunk is talking about Kevin and how he was always eating and how he was overweight, and people have really gotten on my case about that. Some guy came up to me at an Austin book thing and said, "Why did you go on and on about Kevin's weight?" And he was right. I did that to the point where it just wasn't tasteful, where it was just sort of just beating an issue that didn't need to be beaten.
For a period after he was arrested, incarcerated, and released into a halfway house, I couldn't find a single article that talked about him without mentioning, for example, his weight. And the real fascination with Kevin's body and its relationship to technology is one of the things that absolutely hooked me. And I found a number of articles in Time and Newsweek written by people, and the New York Times written by people like Markoff and Joshua Quittner and so on. And they would say Kevin was in a halfway house where he no longer touched a computer and lost 100 pounds, as if those two things were connected.
Cyberpunk was published in 1991 by Katie Hefner and then-husband John Markoff, and it relied almost entirely on the words of people who Kevin had had a falling out with, as well as those who didn't know him at all. Hefner and Markoff never talked to Kevin because he wanted to be paid for his time. But it really didn't take much to dispel the rumors. NORAD denied any break-ins. Kristen McNichol had no idea she was being harassed, and no evidence ever surfaced of any payphone conversions. But none of this ever got printed. Kevin's name was enough to convict him, regardless of the actual evidence. While corporate America would always be the playground of hackers, it was mostly about fun and exploration, not damage or profit. But try telling that to corporate America. Kevin Mitnick had already paid a heavy price for his curiosity. He had served a year and a half in 1988 for logging into DEC computers without authorization. By simply looking at the VMS operating system, DEC claimed he caused millions of dollars in damage, and he was sentenced as if he had caused that amount of physical damage. He was also held without bail, and they put him in solitary confinement for 8 months because they thought he could do even more damage from the prison payphone.
Well, he might whistle up some missile launch codes. That's a big problem with hackers nowadays. They get a little pissed off and they launch some nukes by whistling, The fear factor is just insane.
The one relevant thing that I could say is it seems to me there is a witch hunt, sort of hysterical mentality vis-a-vis hacking, and the people are very quick to fly off the handle and condemn, as terrorists, people who are, exploring like a new technology landscape in a way that they don't understand,
After his sentence, Kevin had to serve 3 years of supervised release, reporting to the authorities every month and being restricted in where he could go and what he could do. And he only had a few days to go when federal authorities decided he had violated the terms of his supervised release by associating with Louis DePayne and accessing someone's voicemail without permission. It was nothing, but it was enough. Knowing how the media and the court system would crucify him over any offense because he could start World War III from a payphone, Kevin decided to just walk away. Kevin managed to avoid attention. Then, on July 4th, 1994, everything changed. A front-page story in the New York Times turned Kevin Mitnick into a household word all over again. The evil-looking picture, the mythical stories about breaking into NORAD computers and controlling all the telephones in California, even the Security Pacific news release tale was retold as fact. Nobody could figure out how the story made it onto the front page of the Times, since there was nothing new in the story. But the author was no stranger. John Markoff, who was quickly becoming a Mitnick expert without ever having met him. One of the things Markoff hadn't mentioned in his article was the 8 months of solitary confinement.
The guy was in solitary confinement for 8 months. 8 months. Think about it. I mean, that would definitely change a man to a several degree. You would run. You would not want that because it was 8 months, not for anything he did, but because the judge was scared. And if you get someone who is that unaware of actually what he can do and thinks that he can destroy the world, if you have someone that has that much power over you who will put you in solitary confinement, you're going to run. Makes perfect sense to me.
I know a lot of people in prison that probably shouldn't be there. Yeah. But that's our judicial system. You know what I mean? That's what's in place. Sometimes it works and sometimes it don't. And believe me, I've seen it not work in the favor of my people many, many times.
There's something about Pennsylvania. I call it the prison state. It's because they seem to have prisons everywhere you look. And almost everyone I know who's gone to prison seems to wind up in Pennsylvania. Weird. Not only that, but every time I get pulled over by a cop, I seem to find myself in the prison state. I knew I'd better be careful. But let's not get off on the wrong foot here. Pennsylvania's a great place. Home of such landmarks as the Liberty Bell, Independence Hall, that little surveillance camera above Independence Hall, and the house where Thomas Jefferson signed the Declaration of Independence. And that's just down the block from the Afro-American Museum and its new neighbor. Well, gee, a maximum security federal prison right in the middle of Philadelphia. How times change. They say it's illegal to take pictures of any prison, even those under construction, even those right in the middle of a city. We couldn't find a law anywhere that backed this up, but just try and take a picture of a prison without getting threatened by some prison guard or cop. Here, look at this part. Maybe there are subtle details that will lead to a prison uprising someday.
I think fully half of the people in federal prison, if not more, shouldn't be there. It's not violent criminals. You know, drug crimes, somebody gets a mandatory 10 years for selling $800 worth of LSD. That's not right either. I mean, that's the way the federal system works. It's just not right.
I know the state of California has more prisoners than South Africa. Incarceration is a big business. I think that's part of the reason. There is less and less tolerance on the part of the public for people who transgress the rules.
Kevin managed to elude the authorities into the next year. Then, on February 15th, 1995, they found him in Raleigh, North Carolina.
The FBI's most wanted computer hacker is behind bars. Kevin Mitnick was jailed without bond in Raleigh, North Carolina, where he was arrested this week. He's accused of breaking into corporate computers nationwide. Private computer experts say so many other hackers are at work that privacy is virtually impossible.
The FBI had managed to track Kevin with the help of a mysterious computer expert, Tsutomu Shimamura, who, along with some friends, had managed to track Kevin's cellular phone signal to the apartment he was staying in. One of Shimamura's friends who was there while the cellular signal was being traced was none other than John Markoff, who wrote an even bigger front-page story this time.
Kevin was denied bail. You know, even a bail hearing. So, if you recall, even Ted Kaczynski got a bail hearing. His bail was turned down, but he got a bail hearing. You're entitled to a bail hearing. You know, on the other hand, Kevin is getting treatment that is outside the law. And that's what makes it very difficult for him to mount a legal defense. He's not being treated in a legal manner.
I've never heard of anything even approaching this level of confinement prior to a trial.
Murderers get bail. Armed robbers get bail. And so the fear of what he's going to do from a push-button telephone in a general population of a cell shows, again, a lack of technical understanding on the part of the prison and judicial system. And I think that's sad. And he is right now the victim of that.
On our way up the coast, we dropped in on Sun. According to a letter we got our hands on, they said Kevin's acquisition of their source code represented hundreds of millions of dollars in damage. Now they give the source code away for free. Something wasn't right.
Markov does things like mentions certain stories. He'll just say, you know, it's been said that, or, you know, other people have said that this. And he'll come up with these stories like he shut down judges, you know, TRW ratings, you know, shut off power. It's bullshit.
I don't think John Markov did it because he wanted to destroy Kevin, but I think he did it to keep Kevin's evil image. Maybe he believed some of the things himself. Okay, isn't a newspaper man supposed to investigate something before they publish it, before they put it in the newspaper as fact? I know Spencer Tracy and Clark Gable always did.
But, you know, I mean, it's hard to believe that someone in this country could be in jail for 3.5 years, held in a maximum security facility, no bail, no trial.
I don't find that very hard to believe.
I read a book, Takedown.
Takedown, that's right.
I read like half of it. Even if you get someone in jail, you probably take over everything.
That's the problem, is people think that, but it's not true.
Well, you don't think you could hack in anything if you just get online?
No, you can't hack in anything just by getting online.
I mean, you gotta have a program or whatever. Why are you recording this?
He's never done anything wrong, he's never hurt anyone, and he's being treated like that in this country.
That is the American way. Wake up, 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 wake up.